Before leaving the floor to Dr. Omar Hamoui, I would like to read his biography in brief. Dr. Hamoui earned his medical doctorate degree from AUB in 1995, then did his internal medicine residency, cardiovascular diseases and interventional cardiology fellowships at Indiana University in Indianapolis in the United States of America from 1995 to 2002. Soon after, he served as Director of Interventional Cardiology at Indianapolis Veterans Administration Medical Center from 2002 to 2005. Then in 2005, he joined the Division of Cardiology at Clemenceau Medical Center, CMC, and headed the division from 2007 to 2009. At the same time at CMC, he served and is still serving since 2005 as Director of Interventional Cardiology. He was Associate Professor and Education Coordinator at Indiana University from 2002 to 2005. He was awarded the Charles Fish Teacher of the Year Award for excellence and dedication in teaching at Indiana University for the academic year 2004-2005. He currently serves as co-chairman of the Preventive Cardiology Working Group of the Lebanese Society of Cardiology. Dr. Hamoui was among the founding faculty of LAU's School of Medicine in 2009. He is a highly sought after lecturer, locally, regionally, internationally, and on TV and radio stations. He has been lecturing to hospitals, companies, universities, various societies, and conducting large-scale direct-to-public awareness lectures for the last 15 years. He has numerous publications on topics pertaining to cardiovascular disease, lipids, and hypertension. Dr. Hamoui, thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Abdullah. Thank you for coming, President Jabra, distinguished friends and audience. The topic, the title, is quite catchy, I would say. Habits and tips for a long and healthy life. I think this should touch each and every one of you. This will have a direct impact on your health, on your life, on how you conduct your health. So I'm a cardiologist, I'm a heart doctor. Specifically, I'm an interventional cardiologist. I take care of people when they're having heart attacks. I do their cardiac catheterization, their angiogram in the middle of the night if they're having a heart attack. If you get on my table in the middle of the night, you're in big trouble. Why? Because already you lost half of your life expectancy. So I got very excited about this topic when I started seeing people younger than me coming with heart attacks. So this is quite dramatic. When you see people coming with heart attacks in the middle of the night, and the night before they were healthy, sometimes they come to you with a heart attack and they were exercising, so they were good. So we need to prevent this. This is how I got into this. So this is the outline of the lecture. First, I talk about the epidemiology of life and expectancy and aging. I talk about the world population. Then I touch on a topic that is very dear to the public, the diet. How can I eat better? What do I eat? So I touch on dietary concepts. And then I finish with studies that touch on life expectancy and what can happen when you intervene. So let's get started with epidemiology. Epidemiology of life expectancy and aging. And most of the data here comes from the World Population Prospects report that was published last year. And this is from the United Nations. Over a span of around 60 years, women that were delivering around 4.5 to 5 kids in their lifetime in the 1950s, now in 2017, they deliver half of this amount. So fertility rate has gone down by 50% in a span of 60 years. Some people view this as a success. Women are joining colleges, are working. They're not delivering at a younger age. So women are delivering less babies worldwide. But the population is rising exponentially. The current population is 7.6 billion. And in 5 years, it will be 8 billion. So why is the population rising when women are delivering less? People are living longer. For the first time in history, in 2017, there were more people over the age of 65 than there were children under the age of 5. So there were more grandparents than grandchildren. And this trend is continuing. It's going to get bigger. So we will have more aged population than we will have children. And it will continue for the next 20 years plus. Some of you were born in 1980. People who were born in 1980, globally, their life expectancy was 74 years. Globally. Children that were born a few years ago, their life expectancy was 79 years worldwide. And those who will be born in 2050, their life expectancy is expected to be 90 years worldwide. So these are the numbers. People certainly are living longer. And what does it mean to live longer? You spend more years of your life at an older age, with all the possible problems that come with older age. Now, this breakdown of the population already is happening, but it's quite diverse based on country and continent. So for example, in Europe, already a quarter of the population is considered older. And in Africa, Africa is the youngest continent, we have a lot of children. But all the trends worldwide, people are aging. And it's country specific, as I mentioned. If you look at our region, for example, Lebanon's life expectancy is around 73, 74 years of age. There are countries, Western countries, 80, 85. And there are sub-Saharan African countries, the life expectancy is 50. Now, for people who like mathematical models, this is health and life. The x-axis is life, lifespan, how long we live. And the y-axis is the health, defined in percentage. When we are born, our health is 100%. If we were born a good birth, no problem at delivery, our health is best at birth. And what happens between 0 and 40 years of age, our health to a vast degree remains normal, remains good. So we don't lose much of our health between 0 and 40 no matter what we do. We could smoke or not smoke, we could exercise or not exercise, we could eat hamburgers or eat cake and whatever. Our health remains relatively good until we are 40. But what happens between 40 and 70 on average? This is average. What happens between the age of 40 and 70? We lose half of our health. And I will define health shortly. So half of our health, our physical and mental and psychological, we lose half of our health between 40 and 70. What about between 70 and 80 on average? We lose the other half. This is quite depressing. What do we like to have to do? What do we want to do with our health? If we are trying to change this graph, we want to live longer and to keep the graph flatter, to stay healthier as much as possible. So this is the goal of everyone who's thinking about their health and their life expectancy. Now, when we talk about health, health is integrally 3 components. We can have the best body, but if we have Alzheimer, it means nothing. And we can have the best brain, but if we cannot move and we have aches and pains in our joints all the time, we are in a bad situation. And we can have the best brain and body, and we are suicidally depressed. So we want all three components. The body, which is what medical doctors care about usually, but we also want the brain. So we want cognition, memory, thinking, reaction. And we want the spirit or the psyche to keep it healthy as well. Now, for some people who are financially oriented, I describe health with financial terms. Health is like a bank account. You can have 0 interest on your bank account, and you can have 3 or 5% interest on your bank account. And it will not make a huge difference over 5 years or 10 years. It will remain about the same. But if you look over 30 years, that 5% interest rate will make a big difference. If you look over 80 years, it will make a huge difference. This is health. It's small things, but over time, they make a huge difference. Now, some people, also economically driven people, they say, do we really want people to live long, to live 100 years? What will be the financial impact on society? These are relevant questions in Lebanon, in Europe, the social security, the retirement age. These are very relevant questions. So, if we are trying to have people live longer, will this be terrible on the economics of the society? The CDC, the Center for Disease Control in the United States, says it's the exact opposite. Most expenditures on health occur in the last 2 years of life. So we may spend maybe $1,000 or $5,000 on our health all our lives, but at the last 2 years of life, we may spend $200,000 because of illnesses. If you get to be over 100, and this is sad and funny in a way, you will die faster. And you will stay healthier till the very end, usually. So the economic impact is 1/3 of people dying under the age of 70. So people who die under the age of 70, they cost society way more than people who live to be 100. Because people, when they live to be 100, they usually, when they succumb, they die quickly. Which is the nice way to do it. You don't want to linger. You don't want to stay in the hospital in the intensive care for 2 months or 3 months on machines. You want to die in your sleep, maybe at home, in the comfort of your home. So there is no financial penalty or economic penalty for living long. This lady is the world champion. Jean-Louise Calment. She is the Guinness record holder for living the longest, confirmed living longest. A lot of people say they lived 150 years or 200 years. None of it is confirmed. She was confirmed. Birth certificates, every station in her life was confirmed. And she lived to be 122 years of age. And for the last 7 years, people knew about her. She was in the same village and region as Vincent van Gogh, the famous painter. And when there was the centenary memory for Vincent van Gogh, everybody came to that region and they met her. And she was already the oldest person in the world, 115. And she lived another 7 years. And they looked at all aspects of her life. She outlived her daughter, and she outlived her grandson. And obviously she outlived her husband and the neighbors. Actually, there is a very funny story about her. When she got to be 90, she had a house. So she sold the house to a person with the contract that she would stay in the house till she dies, and he would pay her $2,500 a month. 30 years later, the person who sold her the house died. She was still alive. So she said, some people make bad deals in life. So this is Jean-Louise Calment. And people evaluated her medically. They did bone scans on her, heart scans. They looked at her genes, at everything. And what did they conclude? I will answer shortly. The people in New York City, in Albert Einstein University, they caught up on this. And they studied around 500 people who lived over 100. And they studied their children, their offspring, who were around 70 or 80. And they studied normal people whose parents died at 70 or 80. And they compared them, and they followed them for over 10 years. And the study is still ongoing. So this is the Albert Einstein study, the longevity study, which is the biggest study that looks at centenarians, people over the age of 100. And what did they find out about age? What did they conclude? They looked at all habits of life, how much people eat, how they sleep, how they exercise. Do they smoke or not smoke? What is their cholesterol? How often do they go to the doctor? Are they single or married? And they looked at those people who lived over 100. What is special about them? What were they doing? Were they drinking olive oil every day? What was special about them? What was special about them?
We're happy.
Nothing. They were similar to the people who lived 70. Nothing they did predicted life expectancy. It was all about genes. So when people live over 100, it's all about genes. It's all about genetics. You cannot see someone who is 110 years old who smokes and say smoking doesn't hurt. Smoking hurts you and me, but it doesn't hurt him. Jean-Louise Calment was a smoker. Okay? So if we are trying to make conclusions, we cannot rely on these people. We study them to see what made them, what genetics made them live longer. This is what's interesting about them. I can't get into too much details about them, but I will conclude. I will tell you a few things that they found in them about those people who lived over 100. It was mostly inherited. So people who live over 100, probably their parents lived over 100. Jean-Louise Calment, everyone in her family was 98 or 105, brothers, sisters, and everyone. Okay? So it was probably inherited. They inherited genes. Number two, they had very good cholesterols in their blood. They had very good cholesterols in their blood. And number three, they had 3 sets of protective genes. They had genes that protect them from heart disease, from cancer, and from Alzheimer's. And this is what made them live long. So they had no natural or inherited bodyguards. And smoking hurts, but it doesn't hurt them much. Obesity or bad food hurts, but it doesn't hurt them much. That's why they live long. So next time we see this, and this is Jean-Louise Calment. She was a smoker till she was 100. She quit at the age of 100. And the gentleman next to her is the current oldest person in South Africa. He is a smoker. And look at the cigarette he's smoking. It's huge. So smoking, he's still planning to quit. He's 110. So smoking hurts you and me, but it doesn't hurt these people. Okay? So next time someone tells you smoking, that person lived 100 and he was a smoker, tells him it was, thank you, he should thank his parents. It's not the cigarette. What's going on here? What is the relationship between the image on the left and the image on the right?
Younger person.
Older? How old? 10 years? The usual answer is she is 10 years younger on the left. But These are identical twins. This is a picture given to me by the dermatologist in my hospital. They are identical. But one of them, it's not Botox, one of them was working outside all the time, getting exposed to sun and not taking good care of herself, and the other one was taking good care of herself. And at the age of 60, they look 10 years younger or older. So doing things to your body can make a difference. And I will show you more details what you can do to your body. Now, some people say if it's all genetics, let's fix the genes. Let's fix the genes. This was very hot on the news lately. A scientist in China edited the first human baby. So they did designer baby. They did a baby that is resistant to HIV because his father had HIV positive. So he may catch it from his father or his mother. So they designed a baby that is resistant, and everybody was, angered because this is editing the human genome, which is ethically very troublesome. And they fired them. Even in China, they fired them from the university he was working. So this is something in the works, but it will be many, many decades before we can do anything about it. Let's see what we can do now. Let's talk about diet. People like to talk about diet. What can I eat to live 100? Okay, I will show you. Now, if there are dietitians in the audience, the conclusions from diet are very confusing. I think every one of us have heard that low fat is good. Some people say high fat is good. Low protein is good. Some people say high protein. Low carbs, high carbs. It's very confusing. We cannot come up with clear conclusions. Why is that? Is dietary science such a big science? It's not. But if we rely only on epidemiology, we will get confused. Because what kind of diet are you following? And when did you start following that diet? At age 5 or at age 85? Are you following it strictly or occasionally? How many meals a day do you eat? When do you sleep in relationship to your meals? When do you exercise in relationship to your meals? All of these are very relevant questions. What are your genes in relationship to your food? What is the flora, the good microbial content of your body compared to what you eat? So a lot of it has major impact on the conclusions. So these are what we call confounding variables. They will make any study very confusing. Let me give you firm conclusions. Number one about cholesterol. Number one about cholesterol. Cholesterol from the diet will impact your cholesterol in the blood at most by 25%. And most people cannot even achieve the 25%. So the diet will have an impact on your cholesterol merely 5 to 10% usually. And that's a very small number, whereas a medication may impact it 80%. So diet is important to cholesterol, but only 5 to 10%. A low cholesterol diet is good for the heart, but it's marginally good. Marginally good. That's why you see people who eat perfectly, they get heart attacks. And people who eat very indiscriminately, but they take a cholesterol pill, they don't die from heart disease. So cholesterol in the diet is important, but to a limited degree. Carbohydrates and sugars, terrible. Especially sugary drinks. Sugary drinks, sweetened drinks, soda, all these drinks that contain added sugar are terrible. Over a span of 7 years, 18,000 participants, if they drink 500 cc's, so a can and a half of sugary drink versus very little, less than 30 cc's, their heart disease mortality doubled. They died double the rate of people who drink very little sugar. And it was mostly sugary drinks. Diet is better. Diet better, but there are problems with diet drinks. But sugary drinks are terrible. Everyone should avoid them.
Sorry, what about the 3-in-1 Nescafe 3-in-1?
If you add sugar to any kind of drink, it's up there. You know, there are sugary drinks out there. Any kind of drink that includes sugar sugar gets absorbed very quickly, insulin rises, the cascade of bad things start happening. Now, this is the third and last conclusion about diet. Fibers. Fibers are excellent. This is a study of around 40 years follow-up, 185 studies, 58 trials, 135 million person years, so huge amount of follow-up, very solid data. And it showed that diets that are high in fibers are excellent for health, for heart health, for cancer health, for diabetes, and people live longer when they eat a lot of fibers. So try to include fiber in your diet. This is a solid conclusion. Vitamins. I'm going to have almost 45 minutes for questions at the end. So let's keep going quickly to cover the material, and then I may answer some of your questions. Vitamins. Are vitamins good or not good? Are they great or are they bad? This is the most delicate study on vitamins from Harvard School of Public Health. They gave vitamins for 15,000 doctors. They experiment on doctors and nurses a lot usually, and police officers. Usually these are the suspects that get experimented on. So they gave vitamins to everyone, and they gave placebo to the controls. And they found out that vitamins daily do not make people live longer. They do not make people have less heart disease. However, they make people get less cancer by 7%. So vitamins are good over a span of 10 years, but they are not the best thing in the world. Okay? What are 3 evidence-based, quote-unquote, medications that prolong life? Number 1 is caloric restriction. It's not a medication, but it's almost like a medication. It's caloric restriction. So restricting your amount of calories. If we eat 20% less than what we currently eat, our bodies will have less oxidation, less inflammation, our heart rate will go down, our body temperature will go down, and over a long period of time we will live longer. So if we restrict the amount of calories overall, we will live longer. Number 2, exercise. Certainly proven in many studies, and I will come back to it later. And the third true medication, which is shocking to some people, it's still ongoing in terms of studies. However, it is remarkable evidence, is metformin. Metformin for the usual diabetic drug, glucophage, metformin. This is a medication that diabetics take, and it helps them with diabetes. However, for people without diabetes, it is the best anti-cancer drug. Metformin, glucophage. So metformin, and please don't leave this lecture and go to the nearest pharmacy and buy metformin. People, there are restrictions, but metformin is a very effective way, and there are ongoing trials to look at it and to prove the value of metformin in terms of life expectancy. There were big studies from England, from the National Health System in England, where they found that people who take metformin had 17% less cancers. So it is a huge, very promising study. Yes, it is, metformin. Now, this scientist from Japan, Dr. Oshumi, 6 years ago, won the Nobel Prize. And he won the Nobel Prize for a phenomenon he described called autophagy. Autophagy is the body recycling itself. He described how body cells recycle themselves, how body organelles recycle themselves. He described it, and he won the Nobel Prize. So this is not cheap science or social media mass propagation. This is Nobel Prize science. And what is autophagy? What makes people recycle themselves and anti-aging, the best anti-aging? 2 things. He described them. The first one is sickness or illness or disease, infection. We don't want that. So when you get an illness, your body is triggered to recycle itself, to help itself. We want to recycle ourselves without illness. The second one is intermittent fasting. This is one of the hottest concepts nowadays, and I will not spend too much time on it, but I will touch it with one slide. Intermittent fasting comes with many variations. Some people fast for 2 days a week. Some people fast every day for 16 hours, whatever it is. When you go 0 calories for 12 hours, your body triggers autophagy and starts recycling itself. And this continues peaking till 16 hours. At 1 or 2 days, it comes down. So you cannot keep on fasting, it will come down. But if you make yourself a habit of going 16 hours a day without eating, so skipping breakfast, for example, eating a late breakfast and having an early dinner, this will trigger autophagy the most. And this is what I recommend to people. So obviously 12 hours at night we're not eating, so night eating is terrible, okay? But if you go the night without eating and you add 4 hours in the morning of not eating, that's 16 hours. And if you eat healthy and you do intermittent fasting, hopefully you will live to be 200. Now let's talk about the things that make a difference in terms of your life expectancy, in terms of science and intervention. First of all, most of us fear cancer. Cancer is one of the most feared illnesses. It is the #2 enemy of humans. Cancer affects roughly 20% of people, 20 to 30%, roughly. This is on average during our lifetime. So a third of us, a third will get cancer. The other half will get heart disease. And 10% will get Alzheimer's. So these are our 3 enemies. Cancer, we are doing some progress in cancer. When I was in medical school, cancer was this cell, and mitosis, and one cell starts dividing, and this is it. We didn't know much. Now we know so many things about cancer. And this is translating into improved cancer outcomes. Cancer for 25 years has steadily improved in terms of the outcomes. Roughly a third of the mortality of cancer has gone down over the last 25 years. So we are getting improvement in cancers, but obviously the best thing is to prevent cancer. Once you get cancer, you're in trouble. Like if you get a heart attack, you're in big trouble. So we want to prevent cancer, and I will give you some advice. #2, I mentioned the 10% will get Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is usually the 5th leading cause of death for adults. There are also accidents and other things, but the illnesses, heart disease, cancer, and Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's affects the population, usually around 10%. It has a huge, tremendous economic burden on the population. In the United States right now, $1 in $5 are spent on Alzheimer's. And in 2050, $1 in $3 in the United States will be spent on Alzheimer's. It has a huge economic burden. And Alzheimer's not only affects the person who acquires it, it will devastate the life of the caretaker. So Alzheimer's is one of the most impactful diseases on life expectancy and health, and we need to prevent Alzheimer's. And I will give you some advice. Alzheimer's comes close, hand in hand with cardiovascular disease. Comes hand in hand with sugar and insulin resistance and diabetes. And comes hand in hand with environmental factors and sleep. Poor sleep directly tied to Alzheimer's. 80% of people with Alzheimer's have either diabetes or they are pre-diabetic, about to get diabetes. So one of the best strategies right now to prevent Alzheimer's is to prevent diabetes, to have a very good sugar control. So 20 years before you get diabetes, you start having what we call insulin resistance And if we address that, if we treat that, if we prevent that, we hopefully will prevent Alzheimer's or have a big impact on Alzheimer's. However, your number one enemy is cardiovascular disease. Half of people, roughly, will die from cardiovascular disease. And when we talk cardiovascular disease, it's mostly heart attacks and strokes. And this roughly accounts for half of the deaths of adults. So this is our number one enemy. It's not HIV, it's not breast cancer. These are important, but the number one enemy of adults is cardiovascular disease. And it kills, these are the World Health Organization numbers, it kills 17.5 million people every year. 31% worldwide. In Lebanon, 46% of deaths of adults are due to cardiovascular disease. It's the number one cause of death for the next 20 years. And 3/4 of the death occur in middle and low-income countries. And men are equal to women in cardiovascular disease. Men get cardiovascular disease at an earlier age, but later on, after menopause, women catch up and become more. So overall, women actually are a little bit more victimized by cardiovascular disease. Roughly, they are equal. Worldwide, when we talk cardiovascular disease, we think it's a disease of the elderly or of the older people. True. However, in Lebanon and in our region, we get it at a 15 years head start. So we are not surprised in hospitals when we see people who are 35 and 40 years of age get heart attacks. This is now common in our country, in our region, due to bad lifestyle and bad prevention. Smoking, we get heart attacks at a younger age. And I started my lecture by saying when you get a heart attack, you lose half of your life expectancy. So if you are 50 and you are going to live 30 years, you lose half of that. If you are 70 and you may live 10 years, you lose half of that. If you live, some people die from heart attacks. So this is the biggest study on heart attacks that was published lately in the United States. Around 1,000 consecutive people with heart attacks. And they looked at them. And 70% of them, they had no symptoms. They had no prior warning. And they presented with heart attack. So we need to prevent heart attacks. We cannot wait for the heart attack to start prevention. What is the warning? What is the symptoms? People, they ask me a lot, what is the symptoms of a heart attack? I say, this is the wrong question. You need to prevent the symptoms. You don't need to wait for the symptoms. This is a cholesterol level from my hospital. LDL of 92, 95. They say it's desirable. Desirable. This is a person coming with a heart attack. What's desirable about a heart attack? Nothing. So our current society and guidelines consider high numbers as normal, whereas they will cause cardiovascular disease. What is normal cholesterol? When we say heart attacks and strokes, we mean cholesterol blocking the arteries. What is normal cholesterol? We are born with a cholesterol of 50, and for the first few years of life, our cholesterol is 50 and 60, and LDL is 10 and 20. So this is normal. We don't need more than this. People think if their cholesterol is low that they will have major problems. They will wither away. No, this is all we need. And when people looked at what happens as people get older, these are studies of autopsies of soldiers dying in wars, American wars. And they saw that atherosclerosis, or hardening of the arteries, starts happening in the teenage years. We start seeing cholesterol or calcium or hardening of the arteries in our teens. A big study called PISA, huge study by a Spanish scientist, looked at people with no cardiac risk factors, so no smoking, no high blood pressure, no diabetes, normal cholesterol. And they looked at their arteries in their bodies. And these were men and women in the 40s and 50s. They had very good profiles. No smoking, no diabetes. They were asymptomatic, obviously, and their blood pressure was normal. And they looked at, are they depositing cholesterol and calcium in their arteries? 60% of men, 30% of women already in their 40s and 50s had hardening of the arteries. This is the current epidemic of society. And they looked at what level of cholesterol we don't get hardening of the artery, and it was an LDL of 50. So next time someone has an LDL or a cholesterol of 180, says this is normal. No, it's not normal. You should prevent. Some people are very worried about lowering cholesterol. This is the balance of treating cholesterol versus the side effects. If you treat 10,000 people who've had heart attacks with cholesterol treatment for 5 years, you will prevent 2,000 events of deaths, MIs, or heart attacks, strokes, or deaths. And if you treat 10,000 people who are in good health for 5 years, you will prevent 1,000 heart attacks, strokes, or deaths. Okay, what about side effects? How much side effects we will get? You will get 10 to 50 side effects, minor side effects. So the balance is certainly in favor of preventing the number one killer. Who should take that decision? You should take it with your doctors. If you have heart disease in your family and your LDL is 100 and you are 40 or 50, to me, this is, you're just waiting for the heart attack to happen to you at some point in life. Now let's look at studies that maybe made a difference for life expectancy. This is a huge study. It looked at almost 130,000 people over 34 years, and they looked at 5 habits. So I showed you Jean-Louise Calment, no matter what she did, she lived 122 years of age. What about people who are watchful for how they live? They looked at smoking, at healthy eating, at the weight, at the exercise, and they looked at moderate alcohol consumption. And they looked at what happens for life expectancy. People who had none of these good habits, they lived to be around 60, 65, 70. However, men who had all 5 habits, so they exercised and they ate healthy and they did not gain weight, they gained 12 years of life expectancy. 12 years, 12 good years of life expectancy. What about women? Women gained 40, always women in life expectancy wins. 14 years of life expectancy. 14 years added life by watching how we live. This scientist, Dr. Julianne Holt-Lunstad from Brigham Young Hospital, University in the United States, she looked at life expectancy. And she looked at almost 300,000 people for longer than 7 years. And she studied everything. She studied everything pertaining to their lives. How they live, how they exercise, how often they go to doctors, who lives with them at home, everything. She looked at all parameters, and she came up with 9 effective things that will impact your life expectancy. 9 effective things. So there were many things that were not effective. These are the 9 impactful things. Number 9, pollution, clean air. If you live in a clean environment, you will live longer. If you live in a clean environment, you will live longer. This is Beirut. 6 years ago, 3 universities studied the pollution level in Beirut. And it was double the accepted standard by the World Health Organization. And now it's worse, I'm sure. And that translates into 5 to 10 years of less life expectancy for the entire population. So those of you who live in Beirut, try to avoid the pollution. Try to go and breathe clean air sometimes outside. The problem is mostly in big cities. Try to avoid going at the peak times of pollution where cars are very busy. Number 8 is high blood pressure. Treatment of high blood pressure. Because hypertension, high blood pressure is so prevalent, so common, treating high blood pressure will make people live longer. And now, what is high blood pressure? We consider 130/80, 13/8. This is the new normal. And how frequent is high blood pressure? Adults, 46% of people over the age of 20 have high blood pressure. And the vast majority don't know it. So check your pressure, 130/80. This is the new normal. Okay, number 7 is weight. Thin. Being thin is very good for life expectancy. Better than treatment of high blood pressure, better than breathing clean air. So do not gain weight. And this is quite important, and I will spend a few moments on it. It's a direct correlation. The more weight you have, the shorter your life expectancy will be. It's a very close relationship. And nowadays, it's not just lose weight. Telling people to lose weight seldom makes a difference. We have to help them more. Obviously, losing weight entails diet and exercise. These are the cornerstones of losing weight. However, there are 5 safe, approved medications now that help people lose weight. In Lebanon, we have 3 of them. And there are, for the major obesity, there are surgeries that make people lose weight. And they are safe surgeries, and they impact people on the long run. So there are options for people who are very overweight. The best thing is not to gain weight from the beginning, but if we are starting to gain weight, make an extra effort to lose weight. So number 9, number 8, number 7, number 6 is exercise. Exercise was more important than treating high blood pressure or breathing clean air. And when we talk of exercise, people think of the musculoskeletal or the bones and muscle benefits. This is quite important, obviously. However, exercise has more benefits. It has physiologic benefits: prevention of disease, prevention of diabetes, prevention of Alzheimer's, prevention of cancer. So it has prevention of cognitive decline. So exercise is quite important. And exercise is one of the most important psychological relievers. The spirit, the psyche, the spirit. Exercise is very important. What happens if we do nothing? What happens if we do nothing? From the age of 30 onwards, we're starting to lose muscle and bone mass. Osteopenia, bones start becoming thinner, and sarcopenia, muscles start becoming lighter if we do nothing. And if we do MRIs on people's joints at the age of 20 or 30 or older, even in asymptomatic people, we start seeing some major injuries. Some people call it normal aging, even in people without symptoms. So the joints suffer as we get older. The neck, the spine, the shoulder, the hip, the knee, especially the knee. These joints suffer a lot as we get older. Jean-Louise Calment broke her hip at older age and ultimately succumbed from that. So joints are extremely relevant, and exercise is extremely important to preserve our life expectancy. At some point in life, if we fall and fracture a hip or a leg, our life expectancy goes down. We may die instantly, or we may die down the road. And a good principle in exercise: avoid injury. So exercise, but be smart about it. Once you injure yourself, you are set backwards. So try to exercise, but take it easy, and slowly increase as you get fitter and more conditioned. Exercise is extremely important. I will show some studies about exercise. This is a Danish study that looked at people over a span of 46 years. The fitter they are, the more they live. And each level of fitness from 0 to 70 translated into 45 days of extra lifespan. So just by exercise, you may live 5 or 10 years more. Exercise is extremely important. Another study that looked at the blood of people who just exercised for an hour, and they saw that their blood suppressed cancer cells. Exercise suppresses cancer to a high degree. What about exercising when you are older? Is it hard? Is it harmful to exercise when you are 70 or 80 or 90? This is a study from Germany on people who did marathons at an older age. If you are relatively conditioned, you can be as old as you want, and you will benefit and not get harmed by exercise. Exercise is extremely helpful. And it's not just cardio. You need to do resistance or weights or muscle building. Gently. Don't go out, you haven't exercised in 5 years and start exercising hard and injure yourself. You gradually do it to preserve your muscle mass, to preserve your mobility and ability to exercise and do cardio. One of the big benefits of exercise is the impact on heart rate. People whose heart rate is fast, they die younger. People whose heart rate is slower, they live longer. So a slower heart rate is very good. A slower heart rate is very good. And a huge study over a span of 28 years showed that people whose heart rate become faster, they get more heart attacks, more strokes, more heart failure, more cancer, and they die more often. So we want our heart rate to be slower. If you check your heart rate and your heart rate is very fast, do something about it. Do something about it. What do we know about heart rates? Now, there is a cascade of information about heart rate. There are many studies that look at heart rate, and from wearables, Apple Watch and Fitbit, and all of these give you information about the heart rate. And they came up from 458,000 participants with these principles, and I will share them with you. If you walk, so the step count, if you walk 6,000 steps a day, that's good enough. You don't need to walk 10, 20,000 steps. If you walk 6,000 steps, you will achieve most of the cardiovascular benefit. You may achieve more than that by walking longer if you do high intensity. This brings me to high intensity. When you go high intensity, you get most of the benefit from cardiovascular disease. The high intensity is very important. And if you do 90 minutes a week, so an hour and a half a week total, is good enough. Cardio, walking, it was good enough. So the more the better, but this is where you get most of the benefit. Well, an hour and a half a week, you start to achieve high intensity. Get your heart rate above 130 for a brief period of time. Gradually. Don't injure yourself. Don't hurt yourself. And I will finish exercise with the sitting disease. There's nothing called sitting disease, but they describe it as such. You cannot sit or be sedentary for 12 hours a day and suddenly just go and exercise for an hour and expect to get most of the benefit. You have to go up and walk or do something every hour or so. You have to incorporate exercise in your body, in your life, daily life, during the routine. Try to walk, climb stairs gradually if you have knee problems. Exercise as much as you can. So, sitting disease. Okay, now we go higher. So 9, 8, 7, 6. Number 5 was for the people who got heart disease to do some cardiac rehabilitation, get back in shape, get exercise. It was important because there's so many of them, people who get cardiovascular disease. Number 4, surprisingly, better than exercise, was the flu vaccine. The vaccigrippe. The flu vaccine prevented half of the deaths at a certain age. Once you get a pneumonia or an influenza or a grippe, there is a very high chance that you will get a heart attack or a stroke in the subsequent months. So prevention of influenza, prevention of viral illnesses by the flu vaccine was a major impactful thing on life expectancy. Okay, now we get into the podium. The top 3 things that mattered in life expectancy. The bronze medal. In the United States, alcohol is a huge problem. Quitting alcohol was a huge impact on life expectancy in the United States. Alcohol affects 17% of the population in the United States. Maybe it's less over here, but let's briefly talk about alcohol. 17% of the population have an alcohol problem in the United States, and it's the #1 cause of death for the younger population. Accidents, suicides, infections, liver disease, pancreatitis, it causes a lot of problems. And now, whereas in the past we used to feel that 1 or 2 drinks a day is healthy, this recommendation now is dying, is withering. There have been studies on millions of participants, and they saw that 0 is better than 1 or 2 drinks. Alcohol can cause many illnesses, infections, tuberculosis, cancer, diabetes, heart disease. They affect the rhythm of the heart. So nowadays the viewpoint that abstinence is better than 1 or 2 drinks. So quitting alcohol was very effective, especially if you have an alcohol problem. The silver medal was smoking. Quitting smoking was one of the best things you can do to your health and your life expectancy. Quitting smoking. This is a report from a few months ago. The Economist. Lebanon is number 3 worldwide in smoking. And they're not counting shisha, they're not counting arabik. This is cigarette smoking. This is cigarette smoking. Lebanon was number 3. I think with cigarettes, with everything, we are by far number 1. And maybe this is why we have such a high cancer rate and cardiovascular disease. And I will not talk much about the harms of cigarettes or smoking. Everyone knows it. I will say, what about 1 cigarette a day? 1 cigarette a day. Is 1 cigarette a day bad? It increases your heart disease by 48% in men, 57% in women. It increases your stroke by 25% in men, 31% in women. 1 cigarette a day is harmful. 1 cigarette a day. Okay, you don't smoke, but you live with someone who smokes. Passive smoking, secondhand smoking, increases lung disease by 66%, increases brain strokes by 35%, increases heart disease by 27%. There is no good way. You have to avoid it. You have to be away from it. What about shisha and the Ma'assal and Ajami and Asfahani? They're all bad. They are all bad. This is a study from Jordan. They are equally bad. So one is more addictive than the other. One is more harmful. It doesn't matter. Any kind of bubble, shisha, all of it is terrible. What happens if a doctor tells a patient, quit smoking? That patient had a heart attack. You should quit smoking. You got a heart attack. It has 0 impact on the patient. Okay, you cannot just tell people to quit smoking. You have to help them. Now there are 8 strategies to help people quit smoking. There are many, many ways to help people quit smoking. Inhalers, patches, gum, vaping. There are many ways to quit smoking. People just have to take the decision and they can learn about them. They can learn and they can quit smoking. And when you quit smoking, over a span of 1 year, your life will be majorly impacted from breathing, from exercise, from the psyche, from cancer, from heart disease, everything. Okay, so we finished with the silver medal. What was the most impactful thing on life expectancy that Dr. Julianne Holt-Lunstead found in her big long study? Number 1 was what? What was the gold medal? Sleeping? We'll get back to that. It was not sleep. Stress. Social relations. Social relations. Strong social bonds. Strong social bonds were the most important factor. If isolationism, living by yourself, no one to take care of you, no one to help you, no friends, no family, was worse than smoking. And it makes sense when you see people, bringing their friends or their parents, or when you have close friends, why are you coughing? You look pale, let's take you to the doctor. Come, let's eat healthier, let's walk. Social relations had a big impact on life expectancy. And when we talk strong social relations, obviously the household, so your family, the close family, but also the parents, the friends, the neighbors, the extended family, you know, where you meet, clubs, religious places, all of these will have strong social bonds. These had a huge impact. And one of the most important studies that address this is a Harvard study, the Harvard Study of Adult Development. And this is a study of 75 years follow-up, 3 generations. And they looked at people and they followed them. These were people from Boston who were in Harvard University and people who were indigenous in Boston. And they compared them and they looked at all their health and they found that the most important thing was close relationships. How important are strong, close relationships? It makes people live longer. First, people who had strong social relations, they live longer. It makes people live healthier. They had better health. And it was physical health and mental health. And it made people happier. So we know that strong social bonds are very important. What about chronic stress? People talk about it. Dr. Elizabeth Mostovsky, a researcher from New York, studied this. And she looked at people and how often they get angry. So people who are very calm, who never get angry, anything can happen and they stay calm, versus someone who is so upset he gets angry 5 times a day or 20 times a day. Let's compare these people and see what happens to their risk of heart disease and death. If you have a good health and you get angry once a month, you're taking a shower, you know, the hot water is gone, you get angry, okay? So once a month you get angry, versus someone who is in bad health and gets angry once a month. So people who are calm, if they have better health or good or worse health, the person with a bad health gets 4 times more heart attacks because he's in bad health, he has high risk. Now what about people who have anger problems? They get angry 5 times a day. A person who gets angry 5 times a day, when we compare that person to someone who gets angry once a month, that person gets 158 more times heart attacks. If he is in good health, what about if he or she is in bad health? 657 times. So, do not get angry. Stay calm. Okay, what about tragedy? What about if I tell one of you that her son just died, or his brother died? So sudden, severe stress. How impactful is that on life expectancy? Is it impactful? If you have good health, 1 in 400 people may die or get a heart attack. And if you are in bad health, 1 in 320 people will get heart attacks. So when you are in a bad health, and try to calm people down, don't tell them bad news because they may get a heart attack immediately. And this stays for 24 hours. That's why we give people relaxants and we tell them gradually. And this is 21 times more risk if you tell people suddenly. And this brings me to the impact of stress and neurological and psychological problems. And we know that this is very relevant on health. The World Health Organization predicts that by 2020, next year, depression will be the 2nd most common cause of disability and death worldwide. Depression. It will be one of the worst problems for humanity. Depression. So, summarizing the study of Dr. Lundstedt, clean air, hypertension treatment, not gaining weight, exercising, rehabilitating yourself if you have heart problem, vaccinating yourself against flu, stopping excessive alcohol, stopping smoking, and have friends and family, close relationships. Now someone mentioned sleep. You cannot talk about health without mentioning sleep. And this is an issue of National Geographic from August. They dedicated an entire issue for sleep. briefly, 6 to 8 hours recommended of sleep every night. And it should be good quality sleep, uninterrupted sleep. And it should be deep sleep. Interruptions will cause heart attacks, will cause strokes, will raise blood pressure, will increase your risk of diabetes, and certainly will increase your risk of Alzheimer. Alzheimer was directly impacted by sleep. The proteins that cause Alzheimer, the beta amyloid and the tau proteins, they get deposited when people don't have sleep. When we have sleep, our brain cells are separated and they get flushed, these proteins, these harmful proteins. And there is a problem with disrupting sleep. The screens and the TVs and the mobile phones, all of these will impact your sleep quality and the sleep geometry. So let's try to have a cleaner sleep, a healthier sleep, sleep hygiene. And I will finish with 3 concepts. First, we're all getting bombarded with health information on social media, on Facebook and WhatsApp. I will alert you. I want you to beware of these things. Haphazard health comparison. Oh, this person did this, it's helpful for everyone. Be careful of this. This is not science. Be careful of the naturalist, quote unquote, people who just like to be naturalistic about treating their health. People were completely naturalistic 100 years ago and they were dying at ages of 50. So now we're completely unnatural, we're living till 80 and 90. So be careful of these people. Be careful of these reports with no clear sources. If the report has no source, toss it. Don't read it. Be careful of the mass alarms. People, be careful of Tylenol, of Panadol. Are doctors completely ignorant of all of the side effects? No. We measure risk and benefit. Be careful of the opportunists who want to sell something, a vitamin or something, and they disregard all treatments. So that's number 1. Number 2, I want you to know that in health, you should avoid the secret information that only one person knows, or only one doctor knows, or only this person in Hermel or Baalbek knows. Be careful of that. When we became doctors and we made the Hippocratic Oath, we want to propagate health. Person who just restricts the health to his own, acquaintances, that's not a good person. Run away, run away. And the other thing that I want you to know, that in health there are no shortcuts. If you eat ginger ale or whatever, or ginger or kale, all of these, they're not the shortcut to long life. There are no shortcuts. There are small, increasing increments of health. And I will finish by this. What is 168 hours? Those who are mathematically oriented, what is the significance of this number? 168 hours is what? It's 24 times 7.
1 week.
It's 1 week. 1 week, 168 hours is the most important number in your life. It will be divided on sleep. It will be divided on work. It will be divided on exercise. It will be divided on family, social bonds, friends, spiritual, psyche, spiritual, and educational. We are in a glorious university. So this is how we divide our 168 hours. Let's say most people work or sleep 50 hours. This is the recommendation, 50 hours a week of sleep. And most people work 40 to 60 hours. Those who work longer, I have compassion for you. But 40 to 60 is average. That takes you to around 90 to 110 hours a week of sleep and work. You're still left with around 60 to 80 hours. How you divide those 60 to 80 hours on your exercise, 2 hours, nice, on your family, on your friends, on your fun, on your spirituality, on your education, all of these, this is very relevant. And before I finish, This is from your smartphone. This is the amount of time we burn on our smartphones. Be careful. This will eat 20, 30 hours a week of things that you can invest somewhere else. How you balance those 60 to 80 hours will determine your life and your health. And the general advice, you do not have to do superhuman actions. You don't have to be like Eliud Kipchoge, who just broke the marathon, 2 hours, 1 minute in Berlin 2 months ago. You don't have to do that. But you have to be consistent and persistent and continue with your baby steps for the long journey. And this will have an impact on everything. Sleep better, exercise harder, get healthier, and relax. And I will finish by a quotation by Sir Winston Churchill: "He who fails to plan is planning to fail." And I wish you all long, healthy lives, and I'm open for questions. Thank you. Any questions? I'm here with you for another 40 minutes. And please, when you ask questions, I have a small request. Let's try to benefit everyone. So I will repeat the question, and I will try to have as much advice that will apply for the biggest number. Please.
When you talk about sleeping, those who work at night, if they sleep during the day, do they have the same quality as those who sleep at night?
Sleeping during the day. This is, to me, this is an illness. This is very harmful on the long run.
Like nurses who work.
Yes, I tell people, if you have to work at night, shoot for some time in the future to start sleeping at night. This is not a healthy lifestyle. This is devastating to your health on the long run. So certainly sleep during the night hours where there's the light of the night life. This is the refreshing sleep. The sleep during the day can be harmful. Your body is not designed to sleep during the day. So this is certainly harmful. Try to fix that.
I have another question. Is nowadays we hear that you have to consume, it's better to consume ghee, butter, coconut oil rather than sunflower oil and corn oil for cholesterol and for the arteries.
So,
is this correct?
So the diet, again, remember when I mentioned to you diet, the dietary concept's very confusing. Some people say coconut oil is healthy. This is the vegetarian that they used to cook
No, not
with.
the vegetarian. Vegetarian is hydrated.
Okay.
I mean the ghee, اللي الدهن يعني عم يتوجهوا للأشياء.
Right. So these things, now some people say they are good. No. The olive oil, the canola oil with a high oleic acid content, the sunflower oil with a high oleic acid content, when they were studied appropriately, they were very beneficial. The saturated fats, we still view them as harmful. But it's mostly a little bit of harm. It's the trans fats, the industrial oils that are very harmful. Okay, please. Yeah.
Sir, at the very beginning, you mentioned sugary drinks. When you talked about sugar, it was at the very beginning, sir, when you talked about sugary drinks. When you talked about sugars, you addressed mainly the drinks. How about sugar and sweets?
Sugar in food.
Other.
Sugar in food was less harmful. Remember, drinks, when you drink them, they get absorbed in minutes. So the impact on the body is very quick and harmful. What happens when the sugar gets absorbed into your blood? The insulin goes up. Insulin is very bad. Insulin resistance, cancer, diabetes, heart disease.
Same thing applies for chocolates.
Right, but when you eat it, it takes time. So you can be a little bit more liberal with foods, but certainly avoid sugary drinks.
Okay.
Sugary drinks for all ages, very bad.
Okay, I have one more question. Coffee.
And coffee and tea, they looked at them in terms of health, and they found some associations that in moderation they may be good. They described many ingredients in tea that may be helpful, polyphenols and antioxidants. They are all weak or moderately strong associations. It's not causation. We know that a little bit of coffee, a little bit of tea is perfectly fine and may be good.
I heard a couple of days ago that Nescafe, specifically, in comparison to LAU Alumni, the Turkish coffee, is much worse.
Okay, I bet you that no one spent $1,000 to do a study on Nescafe versus Arabic. So all of these, again, remember, I told you beware of these, alarmists that don't have any sources. A little bit of coffee, tea in moderation, I think is perfectly fine. Remember, they have caffeine and they are stimulants. So no stimulating drinks at night because they affect your sleep, please.
Sorry, you said that a high heart rate is bad. You have a slower heart rate, that's good. Then why do you have to exercise to get our heart rate above 140?
Okay, so she is asking if low heart rate is good, is healthy. Why do we have to get to high heart rates during exercise? Well, it's only during exercise. When you exercise for 20 minutes or 1 hour or 2 hours, and during that exercise, you get your heart rate up and then come down. This over 24 hours on the long run will make your heart rate go lower. So exercise will make your heart rate lower on the long run, not during exercise. During exercise, obviously your heart rate will come up. But on the long run, exercise is the best way to reduce your resting heart rate, the resting heart rate when you wake up or when you're sleeping.
You spoke about the vitamins. You said that the effect is minimal of vitamins overall health. So should we stop taking vitamins?
I take vitamins. I think vitamins are a little bit helpful, and this study was over 10 years only. So who knows over 20 years, who knows some other ingredients or better quality vitamins, maybe they're very helpful. In this study, the current vitamins, when they did the study, they were helpful in prevention of cancer, a little bit. They were not harmful for heart disease, they were not harmful for death, but whenever people take vitamins, I tell them, you should also do the other stuff. Don't just take vitamins and omit your blood pressure treatment or your diabetes treatment. Take vitamins, but prevent problems down the road. Okay? Let's take it in the back.
Should we run or walk?
Should we run or walk? Should we run or walk? Should we run or walk? This is one of the most important things in exercise. Should we run or walk? If you are young, certainly run. If you are young, certainly run. What happens to bones? Bones at the age of 30 start getting weaker and weaker. And at menopause for the women, huge reduction in bone density at menopause. So running and weightlifting actually will trigger more bone formation before the age of 30. After age 30, you're just slowing things down. But you have to exercise vigorously before age of 30, but don't injure yourself. After age 30, if you are fit, perfectly fine to run. But if you have major joint problems and you're going to injure yourself, your back or your knees or your hip, walking is fine. No one injured him or herself by just walking. Running can hurt people. But certainly the physiologic benefits and the exercise benefits of running is much more, the high intensity. But you have to be wise about it.
Doctor, regarding flu vaccine, can we take them anytime during the year or during winter only?
No, usually from month 9 till month 1, roughly. September till January, February. These are but they help you around the year. So certainly flu vaccine, at the end of the year. End of summer, start thinking about flu vaccine. Everyone over the age of 6 months. Everyone. Yes.
You were talking about the pills and the surgery impacts on the diet.
Yes.
There are rumors that these surgeries, mainly the pills, have side effects. Can you please be more
These are not rumors. These are not rumors. Pills, medications have side effects. Okay? They're not rumors. Every pill has a list of side effects. Every antibiotic you take has a list of side effects. Every blood pressure medication you take has a list of side effects. Every chemotherapy you take for cancer has a list of side effects. Side effects is not a thing to make you avoid something. Doctors balance side effects with effects. So the effect of obesity is very bad. We balance the side effects of gentle medications with the impact of obesity. And hopefully we can get a balance or a decision that will be helpful for the patient.
So do you recommend
in certain people, I do recommend the pills, yes.
First, I want to thank you for this excellent presentation. We all learned from that. We really all appreciate your presentation. One quick comment about vitamin D.
Vitamin D. So this is a very tough question. Obviously, when someone asks about it, you know he's a doctor. Okay. When 6 years ago, I was in a big meeting, the American Heart Association meeting, and there was a huge session on vitamin D. This is a heart meeting. Let's have the microphone in the front here. They had a huge meeting, they had a huge meeting on vitamin D. Sessions and sessions and sessions about vitamin D. Now we're less excited about it. I think right now, what I would say, and this is based on summarizing a lot of things about vitamin D in health, in cardiovascular disease, in cancer, in bone health, in psychological problems. If you have vitamin D deficiency, big deficiency, certainly you need to be on supplements. You have to fix the deficiency. If you have osteoporosis, certainly you need vitamin D. If you have osteopenia, certainly you need vitamin D. If you are in normal health and your vitamin D is relatively normal or minimally low, I cannot really scientifically tell you that taking vitamin D will be huge or will be that much more impactful on your health. If you have very low vitamin D, take supplements. It's very easy. But if your vitamin D is near normal, you're probably okay. Please.
I have a question about the anger.
Anger.
Yeah.
Yes.
You were telling the outburst. What about the people who don't show any outburst, but they are boiling inside? Which is worse?
So suppression versus outburst. Yeah. I would say probably people who, burst outside tends to be healthier. I don't know if it was truly compared, in a big, nice study. I think at the end of the day, it's not the outburst or the suppression. It's how much it's bothering you. If you shout at someone, and I get angry, I don't say I'm very cold and very calm. I get angry, but 5 minutes later, I'm calm. So I think those people who are persistently angry, this is where the problem is. Whether they suppress it or take it out on people around them. So it's the constant anger, and what happens with it, the catecholamines, the adrenaline, all of the bad things that happen on your health.
Yeah, my second question was, you said that 1/3 of every dollar spent in the United States was spent on Alzheimer's.
In 30 years.
Yeah, that means, you mean the hospitalization, 1/3 of the hospitalization cost.
Prevention, treatments, medications, caretakers,
so today,
homes.
Today
1 in 5.
Every $5 spent.
1 in $5 currently in the United States is spent on Alzheimer's treatments, and the nursing homes, and the admissions to the hospital, and the impact, the disability on the caretakers, it's a big thing. Yes.
Is it healthier to eat gluten-free food?
Gluten. Again, the diet thing. We are fascinated by dietary concept. If you are gluten sensitive, meaning you have celiac disease, the disease, and you may not have it from your childhood. Some people get it at a later age. But if you are diagnosed with gluten sensitivity, certainly gluten-free is a blessing. It will help you tremendously. But if you are average, you are healthy, you don't have gluten, there is no added benefit of gluten-free diets. Okay? All right.
Why do we lose half of our health between 40 and 70?
Nice. We lose half of our bone mass. We lose half of our muscles. Most of the anxiety and depression occurs between 40 and 70. We start getting heart disease and cancer and all of these illnesses and diabetes, usually between these years. So you cannot expect to go from 40 to 70 cruise control. You have to be active about it, or you're going downhill. That's why. This is roughly like 50%. Some people lose 10%. Some people die before they hit 70. So it's on average, if you do nothing, you lose half of your health.
And I have another question. Why do we get all our benefits before 12 a.m. if we see before 12 a.m.?
Why do we get our benefits?
Yes. Why do we have to sleep before?
Early. Why is sleep healthier early? Yes. Sleep is fascinating. And the journey of sleep from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 to stage 4 to REM sleep, this is a very delicate journey that is related to the light in the sky, to the light in the room, to the interruptions, to your own breathing. How do you breathe at night? When you sleep early hours at night, you tend to go deeper in sleep and to recover, to rejuvenate your body a lot more. Versus if you sleep in the morning, those who sleep at 4 or 5 in the morning, the catecholamines and the cortisol hormones that wake you up, they're high. And you're forcing yourself to sleep because you're tired. And your body is not going to sleep a healthy sleep. So the quality of sleep, which is a very important measure of health, is better when you sleep early at night. How can you do it? There is a lot of discipline. You have to wake up relatively early in the morning. You have, if you can't sleep at night, don't sleep during the day. Don't exercise in the morning and sleep during the day. Exercise in the afternoon, it may make you tired and sleep at night. And avoid stimulants. Avoid smoking, avoid caffeine at night, avoid the lights. It's a long process, but it's worth it. Please. Well,
excuse me, is it better for our children to play indoors or outdoors concerning the pollution in Beirut in general?
Well, pollution outdoor is terrible in Beirut. It's really terrible. There were studies that when you exercise between cars, you don't get the benefit of exercise. You have to exercise in a cleaner air. You still get some benefit. But certainly at times in places where you have pollution, it's bad because the particles are small and they go down and they trigger all kinds of inflammation and heart disease and cancer and lung disease, and they even affect cognition. So certainly pollution is a big problem, and it's affecting all of us.
What about hormone intake or elements with hormone like soya or so on? Do they have any effect on life?
So the hormone for the woman, you mean postmenopausal, or the hormone in the food? I'm not quite sure.
I'm not talking about modified food, genetically modified, but like the intake of hormones, for example, at menopause.
At menopause, yes. Yeah. And this is an up and down journey. When I was in medical school, hormones were great. We were prescribing hormone replacement therapy for all women after menopause because, it's normal. Women before menopause, they're healthy, they don't get heart attack, they lost their hormones, let's give them back the hormones. It made sense until they did the nurse health study, and it showed that hormones can cause cancer and can cause strokes or deep vein thrombosis, clots. So we stopped hormones. And then 5-6 years later, the companies made better hormones. And hormones became a little bit better. And they were a little bit safer. So we got to be neutral. That it's okay to take hormone. If you have bad hot flashes, you can take hormones. Now I think the consensus seems to be that after menopause, if you need hormones, take the patch. Don't take the pills. The patch may be helpful. Certainly the creams in the sensitive areas is good. But I'm saying that hormones, they can be harmful. If you need them, take the patch, not the pills.
What about soya, for example? It has hormones in it.
Yeah.
Some food with hormones.
Yeah. Again, the soya and the impact of diet and those things on the viewpoint that soya may be harmful. That soya is all great is now changing. So if you go back 5-6 years, soya for everyone, now we're kind of not too excited about soya. But again, that science is weak. It's not a very strong science. Okay? Over here. So Asher.
Okay. I want to ask about the effect of anxiety in teenagers on the heart.
Anxiety on the heart in teenagers.
Yeah.
Certainly, if you are a teenager, your heart is powerful and resistant. So chances are you're not going to get much problems with your heart. But anxiety may destroy your
Will it show on the EEG?
Will it what?
Will it show on the EEG?
The EEG. Yeah. The impact of anxiety on the EEG, you have to ask a neurologist who specializes in EEG. I have no clue. I have no clue. Question here.
The big issue is the water consumption.
Yes.
The relation of water consumption to the arteries you mentioned about the dryness of arteries. There is a lot of...
So drinking water. Drinking water. Mr. Abdullah is drinking water right now. You know, everyone, it was kind of cool to be drinking water. I have to take my 8 cups of water every day. You know, this is something that is viewed as a healthy thing to do. Again, no science behind it. The only 2 groups of people that benefit from water excessively is people with kidney stones and people with cysts in their kidneys. Nobody else benefits from water. Drink just whatever you can, you know, normally. If you overdrink, you can wash away certain good salts from your body. So, water, I'm sorry. Water retention. If you're drinking, you can cause water retention. If you have water retention, means you're holding on to water. You don't put more water, you will hold on to it. Most water retention is caused by something else, not by the amount of water you drink. So you try to fix the cause of the water retention. But the people who need to drink consistently are the people with kidney problems. Those are the people that benefit.
Excuse me, what about
pH level in the body between acidic versus...
Okay, so this is another topic that some people next week take the mic to their back here. The pH, the alkaline food. Again, the science is quite weak. Some people say that acidic food is quite harmful, and that we need to eat basic food. Not much science behind it. Really, the science is weak. And that's why I alerted you about dietary conclusions. Most dietary conclusions are based on shallow science. So you have to be very critical in terms of how you decide on these diets. Please.
Yeah, LDL. Achieving, an LDL of 50 or below is very hard, even with those who exercise and go on a healthy lifestyle. So, statins should be taken in that case. How do you individualize, or do you recommend statins for everyone? Because even everyone is not going to be able to get that LDL.
So good points. LDL or bad cholesterol of 50 is almost 1% or 5% of the population. Most people have their LDL around 80, 70, 90, 100, 120, 130. This is on average. So to get down to 50 is almost impossible. Even if you diet on lettuce and apples all day, you will take it down by 20 points, 30 points. So do we take everyone's LDL down to 50? The answer is no, because it's a very big thing, and even statins have a little bit of side effects. So we individualize, like you said. We look at the people who have slightly higher risk. If you have heart disease in your family, if you smoke, if you have high blood pressure, if you have high glucose, if we take a picture of your chest and see calcium in your arteries, then I want your LDL to be definitely below 70, close to 50. And certainly the way to do it usually is a statin or other medication. Now we have 4 classes of medications that take down LDL or bad cholesterol. So we can individualize. Certainly the people who take these decisions should do them with their doctor. Okay?
What about conflicting opinions of doctors? Somebody would say, for example, statins are harmful, blindly. And some others would say, as you are saying, should be balanced, should be, what are the benefits, what are the defects. But sometimes, as a patient, he goes to two doctors, he gets two different opinions, and sometimes they are really conflicting and opposite. So what should be done in this case?
Right. So many very important points mentioned here. So doctors conflict themselves sometimes. They conflict each other. One doctor says something, another doctor says something else. I tell people doctors are people. Doctors are people. Some of them are educated, some of them are not. Some of them are up to date, some of them are giving you answers based on things they learned 20 or 50 years ago. Some of them are, honest, some of them are dishonest. Some of them are meticulous, some of them are haphazard. Some of them care, some of them barely care.
Maybe in different medical schools.
Not just medical schools, there's people. So, and I want to say also that medicine is not a science. Medicine is not physics, it's not mathematics. Sometimes in physics and mathematics you can say black or white. In science, you can never 100% prove something or 100% disprove something. You just get closer to the truth. So I tell people, in matters of health, you should really trust your health to people that you trust, to the doctors that you trust, that you feel they're educated and that you feel they're honest. Certainly don't trust your health to a report on what's up. Cholesterol has been removed from the bad list. You should not take cholesterol medication. I have a pre-paste, cut and paste response to this. This is all half-truths and dramatizations. It's not even, they don't even write the source. And there are grammatical errors in this report that they just keep sending everywhere. Do not trust your health to these sources. This is your health. This is your capital. Be careful with your capital.
Okay. One last question.
Okay.
Sorry. As you mentioned, like the flu and the vaccine, what about allergy with this pollution? Like people with allergy that is consistent and taking medications all the year long, or like does it have any effect?
Sure, allergy triggers inflammation. Inflammation is bad for overall health. This is the penalty you pay for living in a polluted society. People are itching, people are coughing, people's eyes are red and teary. So this is something that we have, and this is the penalty that we pay. Certainly it's harmful. The last question here. Just one more last question.
No more questions, please. No more questions.
You have to be very careful with things that increase metabolism. Increasing metabolism can increase blood pressure and heart rate and can be harmful on the heart. So I think natural thing is the way to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.